Hello children, today we will be learning about the female reproductive system. The female reproductive system is framed to perform different functions. So let us learn what are the different functions of the female reproductive system. One important function of the reproductive system, female reproductive system, is producing gametes, which you call as the eggs, and secreting hormones such as estrogen and progesterone, providing a site for fertilization, gestating of fetus if fertilization occurs, giving birth to a baby and feeding a baby after birth. These are the different functions that the female reproductive system has to perform. Now, let us in detail see the structure of the reproductive system. The female reproductive system of human is composed of a pair of ovaries. You got two ovaries, a pair of oviducts or the fallopian tubes, one uterus, a vagina, external genitalia, and a pair of mammary glands. So these are the different structures that constitute the female reproductive system. The primary organ is the ovary and the female accessory ducts that include the infundibulum, ampulla and the isthmus, the mammary glands, which comprises the mammary lobes, the alveoli and the mammary ducts. So now we learn more about the primary organ which is involved in reproduction, which is the ovary. You got a pair of ovaries, which are the primary female organs that produce the female gamete, which you call to be the egg or the ovum, and this ovary secretes certain hormones. What do you call the hormones? You call the hormones as ovarian hormones like progesterone and estrogen. And where are these ovaries located? They are located on each side of the lower abdomen. So the ovaries are oval-shaped glands. And what is the function? They produce, they store, and they release eggs into the fallopian tube during ovulation. This is one important function of the ovary. So when an egg comes out of an ovary, it enters the fallopian tube and further after fertilization it enters the uterus. And it also produces hormones like progesterone and estrogen. As it secretes hormones, it is an endocrine gland. So what is the role of progesterone? Progesterone plays an important role during the menstrual cycle and pregnancy. It creates a healthy uterine lining to support a fertilized egg, the embryo and the fetus. That is the function of the progesterone. And what is the function of estrogen? Estrogen also contributes to the reproductive health and to cognitive health, bone health and functioning of cardiovascular system and other essential bodily processes. So these are the functions of the hormones, very important hormones, the progesterone and the estrogen. And coming to the structure of the ovary, each ovary is covered by a thin epithelium that encloses the underlying structure which you call to be the stroma, ovarian stroma. And this ovarian stroma is further divided into two zones. You got a peripheral cortex and an inner medulla. So each ovary has got three parts. The outer lining thin epithelium that encloses the stroma, which is divided into peripheral cortex and inner medulla. And this inner medulla contains blood and the lymphatic vessels. And the secretion of hormones, they start at the onset of puberty. And the oviducts or the fallopian tubes, the uterus and the vagina are the other female accessory ducts. So what are the female accessory ducts? The oviducts or the fallopian tubes, the uterus and the vagina. These three are the female accessory ducts. Now, let us learn something more about the oviducts or the fallopian tubes. The female reproductive system consists of a pair of fallopian tubes, the oviducts, which connects the ovary and uterus, and each fallopian tube is around 10 to 12 centimeters long. What is the length of the fallopian tube? It is around 10 to 12 centimeters long and extends from the periphery of each ovary to the uterus. It connects the ovary to the uterus, and it is the route through which the fertilized egg is transferred from ovary to the uterus. So it is the site, that is the oviduct or the fallopian tube is the site of fertilization, where fertilization happens. So after the egg gets fertilized in the fallopian tube, it reaches the uterus for implantation. So what are the parts of the fallopian tube? Fallopian tube has got three important parts. What are they? It has got an infundibulum, which is a funnel-shaped structure, the edges of which possess finger-like projections called the fimbriae that are responsible for collecting egg or the ovum after ovulation. So what is the first structure? It is the infundibulum. What is the function of infundibulum? To collect the egg or the ovum or the egg after ovulation, which is a finger-like projections. It carries the finger-like projections called fimbriae that are responsible for collecting the egg. The next part of the fallopian tube is what you call as the ampulla. It is the widest portion of the fallopian tube where fertilization occurs. So this is the site where fertilization happens. This part of the fallopian tube, which you call as the ampulla, is the place where fertilization happens. And the last part is the isthmus, which is the last part of the oviduct, which has a narrow lumen, which is a connecting structure that connects the ampulla to the uterus. So what are the three important parts of the fallopian tube? Infundibulum, ampulla and isthmus. These three are the structures or parts of the fallopian tube. Now, let us learn something about the uterus. So, uterus is single and also called as the womb. It is a hollow muscular organ shaped like an inverted pear located in the pelvic region between the bladder and rectum. So what is this uterus? You call the uterus also to be the womb. It is a muscular organ. It is a hollow muscular organ which is supported by ligaments attached to the pelvic wall. And what are the functions? What are the different sections? What are the structure of the uterus? It has got the uppermost widest part of the uterus that connects to the fallopian tube. That part you call as the fundus. So what is fundus? It is the uppermost and widest part of the uterus that connects to the fallopian tube. The main body of the uterus where the fertilized egg. See, we saw, isn't it, in the fallopian tube the fertilization happens, and once the egg is fertilized, it reaches the uterus for implantation. So it is this corpus which is the main body of the uterus where fertilized egg implants during pregnancy, and isthmus, it is the part of the uterus between the corpus and the cervix, and cervix is the lowermost part of the uterus which opens into the vagina. So, and the cavity of the cervix is called as the cervical canal. So these are the different sections. The fundus, corpus, isthmus and cervix are the different sections of the uterus, and we learnt about their functions. Now coming to the different wall layers, uterus has got 3 layers of tissues. It has got 3 layers of tissues. What are they? The first outermost thin protective layer is called as the perimetrium. The next middle layer, which is thick layer made up of smooth muscles that expands during pregnancy and exhibits a strong contraction during delivery of the baby. You call that as the myometrium. The outermost protective layer is the perimetrium. The middle layer, which is made up of smooth muscles, we call that as the myometrium, and the inner glandular lining of the uterine cavity, which undergoes cyclic changes during menstrual cycle, is called as the endometrium. So what are the three layers of the uterine walls? The perimetrium, myometrium, and endometrium. The next is about the female genitalia, the external female genitalia. All the structures that make the external genitalia is called as the vulva. This is a collective term referred to all the external genitalia structures. And the components of vulva are the mons pubis, labia majora, labia minora, hymen, and clitoris. All these together you call as the vulva. And what is mons pubis? It is a cushion of fatty tissue which is covered by thick skin and pubic hair. The labia majora are fleshy fold of tissues which extend from the mons pubis and surround the vaginal opening, and the labia minora are paired folded tissues, folds of tissue under the labia majora, and the opening of the vagina is partially covered by a membrane called hymen. So what is hymen? This is a membrane that partially covers the opening of vagina. And furthermore, you got the clitoris, which is a tiny finger-like structure. Clitoris is a tiny finger-like structure that lies at the upper junction of the two labia minora above the urethral opening. This is the structure above the female genitalia. Yes. Next is we are going to learn about the mammary glands. The mammary glands are pad structures that contain glandular tissues and variable amount of fat. So the glandular tissues of each breast is divided into 15 to 20 mammary lobes. Mammary lobes containing cluster of cells which you call as the alveoli. So each breast is divided into 15 to 20 mammary lobes that is made up of cluster of cells called as the alveoli. So what is the function of the alveoli? The cells of the alveoli secrete milk which is stored in the cavities. The cavities of alveoli or the lumen, you call it as to be the lumen of alveoli, which further opens into the mammary tubules, and the tubules of each lobe join to form a mammary duct, and several mammary ducts join to form a mammary ampulla. So several mammary ducts join together to form a wider structure which you call as the mammary ampulla, which is connected to the lactiferous duct. What is this? What is the function of this lactiferous duct? It is through which milk is sucked out. So this is the structure of the pair of mammary glands of the female reproductive organ. Hope you understood this, children.